So, this is going to be my review of... Actually, it's going to be a series of Stormwatch volume reviews now. This is all pretty much Warren Ellis Stormwatch stuff. And I think they've only collected... the only trades from the Wildstorm Stormwatch I'm talking about here. They only collected Warren Ellis's run. I don't think they have... They collected the other ones in trades. But, yeah, I'm just going to be talking about the ones I own, and those are all Warren Ellis ones. Now, Stormwatch Force of Nature is pretty much the start of Warren Ellis's run from issues 37 to 42, and he pretty much, Warren Ellis right from the get-go implements a lot of stuff, and he pretty much establishes what he wants for Stormwatch right from the get-go. You've got the character of the Weatherman pretty much saying, you know what, this political redline crap, it's not following anymore. If I want to change the world, if I want to save it, I got to do it on my own terms. So, along with a few other characters, Warren Ellis pretty much introduces a lot of new characters that we really know. If you know Warren Ellis' Stormwatch and Authority stuff, then you know these characters. He introduces Jenny Sparks, Jack Hawksmoor, and Rose Tattoo. Now, two of those we know are in Authority, one's not. You can probably take a guess what. And Weatherman pretty much goes around and he pretty much reestablishes Stormwatch as its big authority, and he intends to pretty much say, you know what, we're not doing this anymore. We're not. If the Earth wants to be a baby about it, if the governments want to be a bitch about it, okay, but we're going to save the world regardless. And he does some stuff in here that is like, first it starts out, you can kind of see where he's coming from. If all this political redline stuff is kind of BS, and he starts to implement a lot of stuff, and you really start to see who Henry Bendrix, the original Weatherman, is. And the first story arc's pretty cool. It pretty much establishes the new team members like Jenny and Jack and Rose, and they go after this guy who's this Nazi superhuman being, and that was the first story arc, and it ends pretty cool. And following that is like Reprisal, which is a story arc that follows a British superhuman that was formerly Stormwatch murdered, and they're trying to find the murderer. One thing about these story arcs is that it's not one big story arc in each volume. It's a bunch of mini-stories or even one-shots put together into these stories, and it's about 2 parts or 3 parts long for all of them, and they're all just mini-stories put together. Because Warren Ellis was like... Warren Ellis has these very short stories in here, and it shows, but they're all pretty good. I mean, my personal favorite of them all is the story Kodo. Kodo was this... It focuses on the character of Fuji, who was a former sumo wrestler who was exposed to radioactivity, and now has to wear this radioactive suit. And this follows in Japan, where this Kodo, this Japanese death cult, is creating these weird joined together triplets with telepathic abilities that are destroying the world. And this group called this guy called Raizen, I think that's his name. And what's he doing is pretty much trying to start a death cult. Trying to end the world. And Fuji has this just really cool conversation with him about and how he compares it to a great Japanese author by the name of... Excuse me, I'm trying to think of the name of the Japanese author's name. Now it's bothering me, so I'm sorry. Yukiro Mishima, I hope I'm saying that name right, but that's the name of the guy who they follow his readings. And Fuji talks a lot about himself, and I like Fuji. He's kind of a smartass, but at the same time, he's just kind of... He's really interesting, and the conversation he has about what the villain's real purpose is not really a doomsday cult, but what it really is, it kind of follows what Yukiro Mishima was following, because for those who don't know, in history he was an author who followed the way of the samurai, and he committed suicide after trying to trying to have Japan try to create a military. That's not the whole story, but that's a little bit of the gist of it. But yeah, that's the last story. And in between we have some great stories, like I said, the story of Reprisal, which is the story of Jack Hawksmoor, Hellstrike, and Fahrenheit trying to figure out who killed this British superhero Undertow. And it goes all the. It's this cool little conspiracy stories, and there's some great artwork in here. The other there's Tom Rainey's artwork is really good. I really like it. It doesn't have that whole '90s off-kilter feel to it, like kind of like a Liefeld feel to it. It doesn't have that at all. It feels kind of natural, and I know Brian Hitch shows up in the later books, and that's all well and good, and I love me some Brian Hitch, and I'll talk about that when I'm done. But the other character in here is Shen Li Min, also known as Swift, and in this other story, this follows Jenny, Jack, and Swift in this small town of Lincoln. And what they're doing is basically putting a stop to this police, Lincoln's police station. You know, their police force is basically bullying people, and they're out to stop it. They're basically going to go out and beat the shit out of all of them and capture all the superpowered beings they have under them. And then we have Kodo was the last story, but the other following story to that is called Mutagen, and Mutagen brings in the character of Kaizen Gamora, who shows up in the first arc of Authority, and he's pretty much the Mandarin. He's Wildstorm's Mandarin. That's what he is. He is literally how he talks and how he acts, and not only that, like his character design. Not because he's Asian. He's not that at all. Well, he is Asian, but he looks like Warren Ellis wanted to write the Mandarin. But he's a lot more dangerous. Like, he's even more psychotic, and he's kind of, actually the best way to say, he's kind of like a combination of the Mandarin and Doctor Doom, because he rules his own island, and the whole story starts out in the story of Mutagen is that there's this mutagenic bomb that blew up in the sky over the UK in this plane, and the team is going out to look for whodunit, and it turns out this guy Kaizen Gamora is behind it, and we find out where he got this mutagen from. And again, it leads to America, and how Weatherman pretty much implements this whole eye for an eye thing. And this is where you see Henry Bendrix really start to slip, if you know Stormwatch continuity. And the character of Rose Tattoo, he pretty much tells Rose, you know, there were 233 people on that plane that died. Kill 233 people, and no more and no less. And at the same time, we have the characters of Flint and Fahrenheit following her, and it's a pretty dark story because Flint has some interesting ways of how to compare this to her life when, you know, she lived in Africa with all the political parties, and how this kind of mirrors her life in some ways. And then we have the story of Activator, which I think is just a one-shot story, if I'm right, which follows the story of the character Christian Trelane trying to get tabs on this superhuman who she wants to activate. Her powers are pretty much that she can activate powers of superhumans after this comet that can genetically alter people. And what she does is she's been following this person around, and she wants to know if he's worthy of being activated. However, it turns out the guy's a serial killer, and someone else has activated him. And the big thing is that who the hell is this other activator? Because she thought she was the only one. So that's the thing. Like, there are some story arcs in here that plot into other stories. Like when the whole thing about the superhuman Nazi, and they reveal what happened to Undertow, and I thought that was kind of coinciding, but it turned out that's just build up for the next short story arc. So what do I rate this on a whole? I rate this very high. I love Warren Ellis' Stormwatch run as well as Authority. Most of you guys know that. And this is a great place. If you're looking, like I said, if you're looking for Warren Ellis Stormwatch stuff, of course, this is where you start. I think you can jump into this without little knowledge of Stormwatch because Warren Ellis takes it as his own. You can this feels like a good jumping on point, even though there's one little thing where it just follows this character called Flashpoint, who, just a little thing, he tried to betray the team and all that. But all in all, I think this is a really good story. I think this is a really good comic.